Hello, nurse. Greetings, beautiful human. Tomorrow's my birthday, as I said in the title, and I got this cool mask that I've been playing with. And I'm feeling excited about the coming year. And I'm also feeling, I don't want to say disappointed in my time up till now, because it is what it is, and I've actually had many, many great experiences. But part of the momentum of my excitement for the future is feeling like I had so many things that I thought I would be further along by now. And I think this is a pretty common feeling. And all I can do with it is like try to do better, right? So not just try, do better. My Yoda training is taking effect. Speaking of, I am looking forward to sharing more stretching and strengthening videos again, and diving more into fascia. When I first studied bodywork in 1998, if you can believe it, I specialized, like my special focus was deep tissue work and fascia release. And at that time, there wasn't an understanding of how our fascia is holding water and related to the generation of light in our bodies. I just could put that there because I am still studying about it, but there's some exciting new research, exciting new information about fascia or fascia. It's interesting, ironic perhaps to me that new research is flying in the face of something I used to say about fascia a lot, which is that it's like the gristly part of the meat. And when I did a lot of regular body work on a lot of bodies, I would often feel how our experiences, both emotional and physical, get tangled up. I'm doing this because one of the people that I worked with the longest during my learning about fascia was a runner, a cyclist, actually, bicyclist. And so he had very prominent ITT bands, which are that group of dense fascia, or it's a dense fascia band on the outside of the leg. I'm not describing it very well, but my point being that he had a lot of stored emotion in that fascia. And when we worked together over the course of probably a year and a half, we unlocked a lot of deep stuffed emotion that was in his fascia, and it was very healing for him, life-changing, as that kind of work often is. But I guess what I started off saying was that back in those days, because of that work partly, and then my personal experience growing up as a vegetarian a lot of my life, but not all my life, and then now not at all a vegetarian. So the term gristle has like a lot of layers of meaning, I guess, in my brain, is what I'm trying to get across. And all that aside, it's completely inaccurate when it comes to, I mean, maybe not completely inaccurate. Once an animal is dead and cooked or not cooked, even, fascia is also dead, and it is that gristly part, the white stuff that wraps everything else. I had a teacher long ago that in my beginning of studying fascia who had us peel an orange without taking the peel off by, you know, maybe you don't know, but by working on what would be that fascia layer between the skin on the inside. It's easier to do with like a mandarin. They're practically already done, but orange is a little bit tougher. And then once we did that, getting into the orange itself is a nice visual for how fascia is in our body, because all that white stuff in an orange that wraps, you know, the whole orange under the skin, and then each segment of the orange, and then each little, you know, if you ever peeled open the segments of an orange and peeled off that skin, and then notice there's little layers of delicate skin around each little like globule of the fruit. That's the way fascia is in our body as well. It runs, you know, in an obvious outside way, but it also wraps bundles of muscle fibers. It wraps our organs, and it connects our whole body. Lately, in my healing practice, because I've had some chronic injury here, part of why I've been having this extra LED light, besides just that I like the color and it's a little bit warm, is for that extra healing effect on this side of my body, where I've had a lot of scarring, and I'm feeling a lot of healing. It almost rhymed. Happy to say. Anyway, that's not exactly what I plan on talking about at all. I didn't really make a plan, is why, but I do want to set some intentions going forward for myself and for this channel. Is really the main point of these live streams, and to test out some aspects of YouTube, which I think I've discovered what I need to know there for the most part, but and to practice. Everything is practice to me. Yeah, I am a little torn about how much to share about fascia and body work and all of that here, because I am peeling it off into its own more focused channel, but it is still a big part of my life, and so I'll probably still be sharing quite a bit of that here, and hopefully getting a little more polished version over there in the Human Reboot channel and dojo. I didn't walk my dogs today for the first time in a while, and they're not happy about it. I could still do it, but just confessing, I suppose. Had a lot of other confessions come to mind this morning now that I said that word, confessions. And that is another thing that I might talk about on my channel if I get up the guts and I feel like there's any interest. I think whenever we humans hear confessions, on some level there's like judgment, probably less judgment than there is fear of that judgment, but more than that, it sometimes can be helpful to hear someone else's confessions to help us realize that we're not as alone as we thought, or maybe not as weird as we thought, or not as damaged as we thought. And I am working a lot on, changing the language about being damaged. I recognize more and more it's about the things that happen to us, and my work is in building resilience to transform that, what would be damage, into our unique superpowers. So that said, I still do experience a lot of the effects of a lot of trauma, a lot of things that have happened to me in my life in the past and more recently. And one of the services I actually offer is listening to other people's confessions, witnessing people, just being a listening ear. And I've learned through doing that for other people how needed that is. Maybe we don't all need it all the time, it's not quite the same as therapy, having someone tell you what to do. And I do some coaching, some guiding too. But that's a different container than just witnessing and listening and being a safe space for someone to confess things. So I suppose my impulse to confess on my YouTube channel to some of my viewers is to demonstrate that healing effect, and which the healing effect is not just in being seen and witnessed, although that's part of it, but it is also just in realizing that the things that we hold inside that we think are some big, huge, hairy deal sometimes aren't that big a huge, hairy deal. Like once you get them out in the light, you see, oh, wasn't actually that big of a deal. So I'm pretty sure, although of course right now I'm clinging on to some things that I'm not ready to confess, that I'm feeling like there's a line somewhere that I'm willing to cross, and there's a line that I'm not willing to cross. But that said, I'm not going to go into that today. I might do it tomorrow for my actual birthday. I might do it later today, actually. I'm not going to do it on this particular live stream because I want to think it through a little more. I just had that sort of a revelation this morning that I have a lot of things, just like I have a lot of clutter in my life that I'm ready to let go of. I have a lot of psychological things cluttering up my mind and my psyche. And I recently did a shadow work session and created a workbook called Shadow Mandala Workbook, which is on Amazon. And looking forward to working with that more. But in that process, I'm still processing a lot of that. And this whole thing is about me turning 55, which is just a significant time in many lives, I think, and especially in mine, since I didn't know if I would live to 50 when I was younger. I was told specifically I wouldn't, and I lived very, like the good die young kind of mentality a lot of my life, which is why I have a lot of scars now, or at least, that's certainly a main reason. There, I almost started to make confessions. Did you see that? I am going to make a little bit of a plan about that, and I'd love to hear your feedback if you have any. I see Pixel Drifter out there. Hi. I am trying to get better at looking at the chat, but I didn't. But thank you for the happy birthday wishes. I do appreciate it. And yeah, I might even throw myself a party next weekend. In fact, I said I was going to my bandmates, and then I didn't put out an invite because I fell on my snowboard right after that. And I'm still having a lot of trepidation about my dogs and my house, but there you have some confession. I'm going probably to do it anyway and have a small party, largely because I have so much resistance to it. And I know it will be good for me overall. And it'll be a small gathering of people who can stand to deal with my barking dogs. And I'll keep them in the other room. And it's cold enough. We probably won't even go in the backyard where it would be an issue. So there, I've talked myself through it. It really comes down to me cleaning my clutter in my house, which I need to do as part of why I wanted to have a party. I used to have more frequent parties, and I used to, for a long time, did Airbnb, and so got paid to clean my own house, and that was a good deal for me because I've been a maid, a housekeeper, an assistant for many other people, and I'm pretty good at it, but I have a harder time cleaning up for myself than for other people for some reason. That's one of the things I've been really working on in my Human Reboot Dojo coursework, is the 3 basic things that our nervous system does when it's dysregulated. The fight or flight, I think most of us are familiar with, and is what it's kind of the go-to thought, at least for me. But there's also the fawning. That's that, like, you know, accommodating other people's needs before your own or my own, which I've definitely done a lot, and just came to mind now when I'm explaining how I can clean for other people and do for other people easier than for myself. I've noticed in my life a lot of times. And the third is that kind of shutdown, that numbing, that scrolling, that escape, that running away, which might be my default. I'm not actually sure which is my default, because I definitely do all three of those quite a lot. You know, the fight or flight, that activated, that's the ventral vagus nerve pathway. Speaking of pathways, I won't get into it right now. Don't worry. But then there's that fight or flight, that forward moving, makes sense. It's in the front, and that is the one we're most familiar with. Makes you want to go. And then though there's also that receding, and it's often a shutdown or a numbness or just checking out or avoidant. And I think a lot of people, including myself, engage in that sort of dysregulation without really being aware of it, because it basically, all dysregulation shuts down our prefrontal cortex, where we do our higher thinking, so we can't really think straight. And another symptom of that dorsal or backside of the vagus nerve is deactivation or numbness or checking out. And then the accommodating one is really more of maybe a chaotic style, which maybe that is my default. I don't know. EY, I don't know. Falling into fantasy, I don't think I am. I mean, I certainly have in my life, but at the moment, now I'm talking about the science of nervous system regulation and dysregulation. But mostly talking about getting older, moving on, moving forward, letting go of things that don't work and adopting things that do work better. So for me, dysregulation has been a big piece of why I haven't been able to reach the goals that I had for myself by 55. I'm going to have published a lot of books. I've had the pleasure of producing some original music with bandmates. I've traveled a fair amount. I have a wonderful son who's about to become a father. I have a lot of successes, a couple master's degrees. My house is more than half paid for. It's going okay. So I don't know what I'm complaining about, except for that I have this feeling, and maybe it's just part of being human, but as I'm approaching my 55th, wrapping up the 55th revolution here, I feel like I thought I would have more things further along in my life, or be more successful, or feel more secure and stable, I think is what it is. And in the last several years, I've done quite a bit of work on feelings and emotions and nervous system regulation, because that's what I realized was getting in my own way. So that's why now I have a book about that and coursework about it, and probably will in the future have more books about it. Well, in fact, Shadow Mandalas is probably already a second book in that vein. So love to know if you have any thoughts, any wisdoms, any birthday wisdoms. It's traditional, I think, to give somebody it wouldn't even be unsolicited advice, because I'm opening the door to that for my birthday. If you want to give me some advice, I'll try to receive it. It's another thing I'm practicing. I have a meeting coming up, an art date, and I'm not sure anybody else is going to show up or not, but I'm going to be there. and I have some cool plans for more art, and also working on the aforementioned video series and trying to do a little more work on it for this new channel, the Human Reboot, at Human Rebooting. Anyhow, thanks for stopping in. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for being you, and let me be me. Remember that you are enough exactly as you are. I know, at least for me, it doesn't always seem that way, but I think that is an illusion that our current society is set up to amplify. So it's important to remember and remind each other that if you're here, you're enough. And that said, you could probably do more if you're dissatisfied with your life, as I have found myself in many regards. Well, welcome to the club, and let's do this thing. I'll see you soon. Ciao for now. Bye. Oh.